Hey guys, Script Trooper here with another video, and this one pertains to just the level of expense that has been happening. And in relation to, so you spent $4 billion to purchase Lucasfilm, and there's been some mega flops, Indiana Jones, Solo. I mean, you're getting into the, billion-dollar range of losses in the films. That's not even including the Disney Plus stuff that hasn't worked out very well either. Some has, some hasn't. But you think of Willow, right? Did terribly. You think about The Acolyte. They lost a ton of money on that. I mean, that's another. You're probably up to $1.5 to $2 billion on top of the $4 billion they paid in losses. So you're probably up, and this is an estimate, but you're probably up to about $6 billion before we start looking at anything profitable. So it's interesting here. Disney Star Wars movie that shattered spending records. And this is the other thing I want to mention as well, is that as time goes on, more and more of the reality of what they spent is happening, and they have spent more and more and more and more money. So you start to think about it, it's like, of that $6 billion that they spent or have spent with Lucasfilm, the return has got to be pretty pathetic. Now, somebody said in an article a couple weeks ago they made $12 billion off Star Wars. I find that hard to believe, but let's say they did. When you factor in the expenses, how much money did they really make? So, this is pretty crazy. The cost of making Star Wars The Force Awakens was even higher than previously thought, as a detailed analysis of the financial statements for its production company has revealed that Disney spent $638.9 million. $640 million. On the sci-fi film, cementing its status as the most expensive movie in history. Crazy. 3 years after the studio's $4 billion acquisition. Yeah, we all know all that. Check this out. So, production budget. Total revenue from studio, $533 million. Blah, 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 blah. Minus all this stuff. Administrative production. So, ultimately, the total cost was $638 million. Minus, net loss, whatever. That doesn't matter. That's tax stuff. So think about how crazy that is. That is crazy. 640. And what I find interesting about that is 640. You take a movie like The Joker, right? We don't actually get to find out exactly what these films are spending on marketing. Sometimes we do, sometimes we don't. But generally, we don't always get the accurate number for that. Or if we do, it comes years later. Joker 2 cost $200 million to produce and roughly $100 million to market. So Joker 2 cost $100 million to market. What do you think this cost to market? This episode 7. Like, it was everywhere. This was sort of the last Star Wars movie that you saw, have fast food cups and, or whatever, Burger King, and they had all the toys and all this stuff. And it was everywhere. There was ads constantly. If they spent $640 on making, if we just go by the average here, so half the money they spent to make it, they spent on marketing. That would put $640. So that's $320. $640 plus $320 is $960. So almost $1 billion. Now, I'm not going to say they spent $340. Let's be generous and say that they spent $220 million on marketing. I think they probably spent more, but let's just to make it so we're not going too crazy. So if they spent $240 on marketing, you're looking at $880. So you're looking at $880 million probably, about, right? And The Force Awakens did bring in $2 billion. So of the 6 they spent, they made back 1 or 1.2 billion. So they're still down 5.8 billion at that point. Excuse me, 4.8 billion at that point. Then you have The Last Jedi. Then you have The Rise of Skywalker. The Rise of Skywalker did not make very much money. I think it only did 1.07 bill. And they probably spent, what did they spend? Let's check. Yeah, like The Last Jedi did horribly compared to The Force Awakens. The other thing to note here, it says on the Joker one, at this rate, the film won't get anywhere close to the 450 needed to break even. So, if The Force Awakens is up 1.2 billion, but you also have to factor in that a good chunk of that money goes towards the theaters, whether it's 25% or whatever. Depends on the jurisdiction, I guess, and the different contracts they have with these theater companies. So in reality, at the absolute most, Force Awakens made under $1 billion profit. Some places have it, I think this article even says it made $500 million. Disney does not discuss the costs of specific productions and did not respond to an opportunity to comment. However, its filings show that it received $103.4 million reimbursement for The Force Awakens, bringing its net spending on the movie down to $535. Okay, so $2.1 billion, and Disney is believed to have received around half of it, with the remainder retained by theater chains. This reflects the findings of film industry consultant Stephen Fellows, who interviewed 1,235 film professionals in 2014 and concluded that according to studios, theaters keep basically 50% on average, which, based on this, makes sense. We'd have to make $450 million to break even. Yeah, exactly. That's the math. So I'm way off. It's not even 25%. I was trying to give them the benefit of the doubt. It gave The Force Awakens a profit at the box office of around $500 million. $500 million. So they bought it for $6 billion, and they took down $500 million from that. So now they're down to $5.5 billion. And this is where it's like, again, people, oh, they made $12 billion, and it's like, yeah, but what did they pay for that? Do you know what I mean? And that's the issue with all this stuff. So The Last Jedi, so the estimated budget was $317. So let's say they spent $317, and this is assuming that we're not gonna get another article like this 6 months from now saying, oh, actually it was 500 or some stupid thing. 317 plus, I'm going to say 150 million for marketing. It probably was way more than that. But let's just say that for argument's sake. Let's say it was 153 million for marketing, which puts it at 470 million. It grossed 1.3, so 470. So that would be 860 million. But then they take 50% of the profits. So The Last Jedi, maybe 400 million? Like, that's not very much. And if we go back, you did 800 million just to break even, brought in 1.6 million. Well, what was the profit? Well, this is just people talking, so that's not what I want. Yeah, so The Last Jedi made 400 million. That's exactly what I thought. That makes the most sense. Again, that's assuming that their cost is what they say it is. So right now, with the first two feature films, they've made $900 million. So there's still $5.1 billion in the hole going into The Rise of Skywalker. $5.1 billion in the hole. Look at this. Look at the budget. The budget for Rise of Skywalker was way higher. So with budget and marketing, at least $600 million. This movie made nothing. By the time you pay the movie theaters, it literally made nothing. Or if it made anything, it was really pathetic. So this is saying it made 300. But that was laughable. Yeah, China, they only got 20 million from. Even though they placated to China and shrunk Finn and basically took his potential role away to get Chinese people to go. Ninth with around 300 million in profits. Factoring marketing spends, post-theatrical afterlife participation deals and the like, that was less than Rogue One. So it made 300 million in profit. So you bought it for 6, you've now made 1.2. So you're 4.8 billion in the hole. 4.8 billion in the hole. Rogue One made 320. So 4.8, 4.5, 4.48. 4.48 billion is where you're at heading into the Disney Plus series. 4.48 Basically, let's just say 4.8 billion in the hole. So you're 4.8 billion in the hole going into the Disney Plus streaming shows. 4.8 billion. Then you factor in the Acolyte they spent 300 million on, or whatever it is, 250 million on, and it's a loss. They spent 250 million on Andor, and it had okay viewership, but very disappointing. Right? I'm just talking numbers, not talking about quality. Ahsoka didn't really do that well, and they spent a ton of money. There's absolutely no possible way that they've made anywhere near back that 4.8 billion. If anything, they're still in the hole for 4 to 4.8 billion. It's a disaster. It's a complete disaster. Okay, and to be fair, we'll say this. Blu-rays merchandise sales go directly to Disney, with a recent report estimating that the latter alone generated $1 billion. That said, Disney also picked up the tab for the colossal marketing cost of The Force Awakens, so the precise profits of the movie may remain closely guarded. Okay, let's give him that. Let's give him another $1 billion. So 3.8 billion before the Disney Plus shows. There's no possible way. There's no possible way those shows have made that much money. Those are streaming shows. They don't get anywhere near the viewership as the movies. Like, not even in the same hemisphere as the movies. You know what I mean? So, like, The Force Awakens, millions upon millions upon millions upon millions, tens of millions of people watch that movie. The Acolyte had like a 2.7 million rating or something like that. Like, it's not even in the same hemisphere. Sure, give them that and say it's 3.8 billion that they owed before the streaming services, and I will say they probably still owe that. They still owe that. Because they've had so many losses. Yeah, they sold a lot of Grogu stuff, Grogu plushies and this and that. But if they lost with Acolytes and Andors and all these other ones, which they definitely did, they lost money, then they're in the hole. Like, and so this whole idea that, oh, we made all this money, you didn't though, because there's such huge expenses. Now we won't know exactly. I'm not sitting here telling you that I'm like the guy who knows it all. It could be a little bit worse. It could be a little bit better, but we can reasonably deduce that it's been a disaster financially for them, and it's only getting worse. And so I don't know. I just don't see how they're going to ever make any money off of Star Wars, especially with the downward trend, the apathy that's set in. I mean, after Mando Season 2 finale, it's just been tanking. And don't get me wrong, Mando made them some money. I'm sure Mando made them some money. Let's be generous and say Mando as a TV show made them $800 million, which is a little crazy, but let's say they did. Let's say they're $3 billion in the hole. Okay, well, if they're $3 billion in the hole, how are they going to get out of that? How are you going to get out of it? I don't know. I don't know what they do. You know? It's crazy. None of that includes what they pay all the executives in terms of Kathleen Kennedy and all of her friends that she hired and the infrastructure of Lucasfilm. That doesn't include that. It does on a film-by-film basis, but not overall. They're not always, on production. They're in the office. They're at Lucasfilm Limited in the office doing stuff. This is pretty wild. I think Disney Star Wars has been a financial failure. If I'm missing anything, let me know in the comments section. But remember, they didn't even do a toy line for Rise of Skywalker. I mean, it's been a disaster. It's been a major, major disaster. And I don't know how they're ever going to recover. I don't know how they're ever going to make back the money they're spending and they've spent. And they're going to keep trying. And I'm like I said in a previous video, I'm giving it 5, maybe 10 years, and Star Wars will be over. It'll be over. It'll cost so much. It'll end up being such a black hole that they'll just say forget about it. And then maybe, just maybe, if we're really lucky, they'll sell it to somebody who cares, and that somebody will stand up and say nothing they did is part of Star Wars. We're erasing it. And they could do that too, because they don't need it. If the stuff Disney made isn't continuously making them money, whoever was to purchase Star Wars or Lucasfilm, then they can stand up and do that. You could never stand up and do that for George's 6 films because they still make money. They still make this company money. So, all that to say, it's a failure, and even if somebody could do the math and prove to me that they have actually, like, they're at the break-even point right now, right? They're at break-even point. So, it's headed down the toilet. So, you're still kind of screwed. Anyways, guys, let me know in the comment section if there's something you can think of that I haven't thought of. But this is a disaster, and I have a feeling that these other movies, Last Jedi, Rise of Skywalker, probably cost a lot more than they're letting on. Because as we see here, this cost way more than we initially thought. I don't think there's any way that Last Jedi only spent, what was it, $370 or whatever, or $317. No, that is a lie. That thing cost more than that, 100%. I don't believe that for one single second. So, anyways, like I said, let me know in the comment section. If you like this content, please like and subscribe. Always helps the channel. Feel free to check out everything else on my channel. Have yourselves a really good day.